Hey everybody, did you miss me? So I know I said my last video was my last one, but it was for that section. Have an opportunity to do a discussion post for another class, and I want to do it. This is for the Maternal Child Health Systems in a global context. And currently in this classroom, my country that I chose is Mexico, but I don't have to talk about Mexico in this one, but I just want to give you a little bit of the what's going on. So for this one, I had to pick between three different questions, or at least pick one of the three questions to discuss. But I couldn't pick just one, so I kind of want to talk about all three because I felt inclined and pulled to every single one of them, especially with the 8 or 9, 10 articles and sources that we had to look through. So question 1, how would you define ethical global work in maternal health? And I was like, whew, starting off with a heat early. Cool. So, of course, we know ethical principles is like morality. Like, how do we look at that part when it comes to global context? What principles, what philosophical principles do we need to abide by? I know we need to move beyond charity and focus on health justice, equity, and accountability. A lot of times when things don't go right, we want to blame everybody but the source. So we need to focus on that. One article by BAM 2020, they argue that global health must be repoliticized. Ooh, say that 5 times fast. By acknowledging the impacts of colonialism, racialism, sexism, capitalism, and other systemic inequities on maternal health outcomes. So basically all of the negative isms, but of course not Baduism. And when they said that, I was like, absolutely, because we forget a lot of these places who are choosing to be philanthropic are kind of really harking on saviorism complexes, and they don't really need to do that, especially if there's not a culturally competent grounding that is happening. Because with cultural competence comes humility, and again, a lot of these organizations don't do that. The first organization that I think of, and I was a certified CPR instructor with them, was the, now I can't think of the name. It'll come back to me in a second. But anyway, next point for that. So ethical work includes bidirectional learning. So when people come from the outside in somewhere else, you have to humble yourself to know that you're going to learn from them. You're going to learn their culture. You're going to learn their practices. You can't just come in and be like, y'all aren't grateful. No, because you're not coming in out of respect. And I said in my earlier video from my other class, you're not coming in as an evaluator. You need to come in from the perspective of a storyteller, more of a respectful observer. And again, a lot of the humility just is not there. And of course, I mentioned it a second ago, or I believe I did, or maybe I did in my head. But saviorism needs to stop. It needs to really be replaced with partnerships. And I keep saying humility because if you watch the news as little as I do, or if you know anything that's going on in this world, you see that there's a lack of humility going on. Like there is none of that here. A lot of arrogance. And I had a conversation with my friend today, and I feel a lot of arrogance, like a narcissism. Right above that, we have the sociopath and psychopath. But this is not for a psychology program, so I'm going to pivot back to what I'm talking about. And a quote by Global Health Equity and the Savior Complex, they said, success should not only be measured by statistics or interventions, but by whether communities experience meaningful and sustainable improvements in their lives. For instance, if we're going across the country or the world to give people diapers, and they don't use our type of diapers, but we want to gloat and take all these pictures and have our moment in the magazine with all the photographers and the write-up about our philanthropic efforts. Is that what they needed, though? Okay, I didn't think so. You just wanted to do something for you. You just wanted to come in and save them because what you think they need, you want to give them. But again, the bidirectional learning, you have to ask them, what exactly do you all need to be sustained? What exactly do you all need to be content? that question a lot of times isn't asked. It's assumed based off of our culture, which is, or whomever the culture, which is a very narrow lens. And again, communities closest to the issue, or the communities that actually live in the area that you want to help, should be the ones leading what you do. So their input is 100% valid. If you don't have the input from the community you're helping, you're doing it because you have an ego complex. I said it. I just had to say it. All right, question 2. What do you think about the role of international students, providers, or NGOs in maternal health initiatives? How can we ensure that we act as allies rather than saviors? So I would replace co-conspirators over allies, because a lot of people talk about allyship but don't realize being an ally is very minimal in this day and age. As much chaos as we have going on in the world with our politics and our just respecting other cultures and countries and people, we need to be co-conspirators. I need to know that you're going to be right here on the front line with me, not behind and say, oh, I'm cheering for you. Baby, I don't need that. I don't need that. Nobody needs that. Are you about that action? We need you to be about that action. Otherwise, you're doing it once again with ego. And ego doesn't really serve much but protection. Again, this is not psychology, so I'm going back. So international students, NGOs, and providers can play a supportive role through collaboration, advocacy, funding, education, and workforce support. And we should avoid entering communities believing that we're the solution, when the community that we're serving, they're the actual primary experts. I see that a lot. Not the American Heart Association, the Red Cross. My issue with the Red Cross, I was trying to get to who it is. My issue with the Red Cross is I don't really think they honor the history. When I don't want to say honor, they're not as forthcoming about the history of what they actually did. And what I know is they were not super helpful, nor did they want to receive blood from the Black community because of all of the crazy theories that were going around about African Americans. Now, some of it was based off of syphilis and okay, but like y'all did it, so you mad at us, so we can't give because y'all did this. Like that was weird. But the lack of involving African American or brown bodies, like receiving support, is crazy. But you want the labor off of our bodies. I can't get down with that. And circumstances brought me out of it, and I was just over it. I appreciate teaching people. That was a great time. But no, not for me. So back to the question. So Bukani and Ambimbola, that's a really hard last name to say. No disrespect to them. It's me. 2023, they discussed epistemic injustice, which basically means the knowledge, what you know or what you know you don't know. So either or. It could be the limitation of knowledge or what you already know. And that occurs when marginalized communities are not viewed as credible knowledge producers. Like, oh, we need this. Okay, we're just going to give you what we think you need. Did you not hear what they just said? Based off of their culture, their practices, their needs, how they navigate their life, you need to provide this, not that. Again, humility. Like every single one of these questions, I'm going to keep repeating humility. So hopefully you leave this video thinking, how can I be more humble if I'm a servant of the community? I really hope you do. I think about it a lot. Ethical partnerships also require recognizing local providers, birth workers, and community members as experts in their own lived realities. Now, this right here is something that I am fed up with on a regular. I do wonder frequently with a lot of these talks and organizations that are going around that has either connection to legislative bodies or connection to the dollars. What exactly are you doing? Because there are so many other organizations that either want to do the work or are doing the work, but without the financial backing. That's crazy to me. But then you want to keep repeating and broadcasting how bad things are. Both don't need to be true. They are true, but both don't need to be. And I feel the powers that be need to do some looking in to understand where they are in the alignment with the problem versus the solution. So cultural humility and transparency are essential for avoiding saviorism. That's from, again, the Global Health Equity and the Savior Complex. I 100% agree with that one. So representation matters. Rector 2020 highlighted that providers from underrepresented backgrounds often demonstrate higher cultural competence and are more likely to serve marginalized populations. AKA, one of my favorite old school brands of my time is FUBU, For Us, By Us. We sometimes, a lot of times, are better at serving our own community because we understand how our community operates. However, we need to be okay with those who have the cultural humility and cultural competence to come in and to assist us in the mission. Not lead, but assist. A good leader knows what their capability and expansions are, or their capabilities and skills are. You can't just come in thinking because, I have the money, I'm the lead, I'm the CEO and founder, that you know how to deal with all of the things. One thing that I do like as a leader, I know how to delegate. Because once again, like I've been saying in my other videos, this is chess. Baby, this is not checkers. And we need to play accordingly. So sometimes help is needed locally as much as globally. Ethical global work should acknowledge that inequities exist everywhere, including within the United States. And I said this because sometimes I feel like us in the United States are so busy minding the business that doesn't pay us. We need to mind our own business. Not because other countries don't need help, but right now our country is like, scale of 1 to 10, we're giving a 4.5. And that's me being gracious because of some of the choices that are going on. So last question. What responsibilities do researchers, clinicians, or volunteers have when entering a global health setting? And how do we avoid causing unintended harm? So researchers and volunteers have the responsibility to enter communities with humility, like I said, every time, preparation, and accountability. We should understand, or they should understand, that cultural, political, and historical context, they should understand the cultural, political, and historical context of the communities they are serving. Didn't I mention that already about the that organization? American, the Blood Foundation. Why can't I think of it? Not American Heart Association. Maybe I've been doing this for a long time, but the one I talked about moments ago. Yeah, because when I think of that organization specifically, I think of where all their money was going during Katrina. Yeah, the efforts that you need gas to serve, but also why do the CEOs during this time need $250,000? They don't. Because the cause, American Red Cross, the cause needs more than what the CEO needs. Right? Humility. As a CEO, I will be okay because you know what? This is not my first $250,000 check or payout over time. If I'm good with my money, I should know that, hey, life is going to happen. Catastrophic events in my community are going to happen. And in order for me to lead and to help efficiently with humility and with purpose and intention, sometimes I got to give it up. But whatever. I'm not going to attack everybody. I'm not going to do it. Let's see. Avoiding unintentional harm means not imposing outside solutions without community input. I said that before. Avoiding extractive research practices. Like, I'm just going to take away from this community. No, because then you're leaving even more of a deficit in what they have. And I think that's very unhealthy. And that happens so much to so many communities. Specifically when enough brown female bodies were utilized for gynecological advances and procedures. So you're taking us away. You're taking things out of us. You're causing so much harm, but you're not putting anything back in to us. You're just adding things to what your credentials are or what you've done. It's just so, I actually have visceral reactions and not in a good way when I talk about some of these things because it honestly makes me sick. So Biome 2020 emphasizes the importance of shifting leadership and ensuring global health institutions reflect the populations they serve. Again, if we are serving people of color, there needs to be many people of color on the board, right? And it's okay to have a Caucasian person as the front man for the money if they understand what's happening here. That would be the definition of a co-conspirator. Yes, I will totally be the front man so we can get all of this money to help with this organization. I don't see many of those things occurring. Not that they don't happen, but I don't see them, probably because they don't want to jeopardize their money. I get it, but also it's good to know that it exists and there are people out there really doing the work. So Homer et al. 2021 emphasizes that strengthening support systems for midwives and healthcare workers in humanitarian and fragile settings to protect both providers and outcomes. So in the hospitals here in Ohio, I see signs when I would go in to support my birth clients or my pregnant clients, and it would say like not to cause harm to the medical staff, which is very true. But I also look at it in the inverse. What if they're the ones causing harm to us? Because if anybody knows about medical school and or medical education, so that's nursing school, PA school, whatever, there's a lot of hazing and unhealthy practices that go on there. And there's so many theories behind that, but we're not in conspiracy theory class. We're here for Maternal Child Health Systems. And I'll move on to my next point. Long-term trust building workforce investment. Long-term trust building, workforce investment, and local leadership development are more ethical and sustainable than short-term mission trip approaches. So we cannot cause harm if, again, we're leading with humility. If we know I don't have all the answers, I'm going to look to y'all. And if I have the resources, that's collaboration. Humility and collaboration answers all three of these questions. I had so much more to say, but I'm going to keep it under 20 minutes. And I did good. So thank you all so much for watching. The next video, hopefully, you'll see me all dolled up in my robe with my hood and my family supporting me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.